Before we begin, a quick and important disclaimer. The information provided in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute professional medical, psychological, legal, or financial advice. The digital landscape and its effects on human behavior are complex and subject to ongoing scientific research. Viewers are strongly encouraged to conduct their own due diligence, consult with licensed professionals regarding mental health or data privacy concerns, and recognize that individual experiences with social media may vary. We are discussing historical trends and potential outcomes based on available data, not making definitive predictions for any specific individual. By the time you finish watching this opening segment, a trillion-dollar algorithm has already predicted your next 3 emotional states with more accuracy than your closest friends or family members. Right now, in pockets across America, there are buildings filled with some of the most brilliant minds from Stanford, MIT, and Harvard. These engineers aren't working on curing cancer or solving the energy crisis. Instead, they are paid 7-figure salaries to figure out one thing: how to break your willpower. We like to think of our smartphones as tools like a hammer or a screwdriver, but a hammer doesn't get angry when you put it down. A hammer doesn't whisper to you in the middle of the night, begging you to pick it back up. What we are witnessing today is the largest unplanned psychological experiment in human history, and the American public is the primary test subject. We are currently living through a period where the average American spends upwards of 7 hours a day staring at a screen, with a significant portion of that time dedicated to social media feeds. This isn't an accident. It is the result of what industry insiders call brain hacking. When you look at the historical trends of human interaction, we have moved from face-to-face communities to digital echoes in less than 2 decades. This shift has fundamentally rewired the neurobiology of the American brain. This video is the first part of a 10-part masterclass designed to pull back the curtain on the digital architecture that governs your life. We are going to explore why your attention is the most valuable commodity on Earth, how social media is contributing to a documented loneliness epidemic in the United States, and the specific mechanisms used to keep you scrolling, even when you want to stop. By the end of this series, you will understand the hidden costs of the free apps on your phone and how to reclaim your cognitive sovereignty. To understand the depth of this issue, we have to look at the concept of the Skinner box. In the mid-20th century, psychologist B.F. Skinner discovered that if you place a lab rat in a box with a lever that sometimes delivers food and sometimes does not, the rat will press that lever until it collapses from exhaustion. This is known as variable ratio reinforcement. It is the exact same mechanism found in a Las Vegas slot machine, and it is the exact same mechanism found in your pull to refresh feed. Every time you swipe down on your screen, you are playing a psychological slot machine. Will it be a like? Will it be a comment? Will it be a piece of news that makes you angry? The uncertainty is what creates the addiction. Case studies in behavioral economics show that human beings are far more addicted to maybe than they are to yes. This neurochemical hijacking leads to a phenomenon we call dopamine baseline displacement. Dopamine is not the chemical of pleasure. It is the chemical of more. It is the molecule of pursuit. When you receive a notification, your brain releases a surge of dopamine that creates a craving. Over time, because the stimulation from social media is so frequent and so intense, your brain's natural baseline for dopamine rises. Activities that used to bring you joy, reading a book, taking a walk in a park, having a long conversation with a spouse, suddenly feel boring or slow by comparison. You aren't actually bored. Your brain is simply desensitized. Historical trends in American clinical data suggest a direct correlation between the rise of high-frequency digital stimulation and a decrease in the ability of the average adult to maintain deep focus for longer than 10 minutes. The problem for the American audience today is that this loss of focus isn't just a personal inconvenience. It is a professional and social crisis. In an economy that increasingly rewards deep work and complex problem-solving, the inability to concentrate is a massive liability. Furthermore, social media has transformed the way we perceive our own lives through the social comparison trap. In the past, you compared your life to your neighbors. Today, you are comparing your behind-the-scenes reality to the highlight reels of 3 billion people. This creates a perpetual state of perceived inadequacy. We see influencers in Los Angeles or New York living lives that are mathematically impossible for 99% of the population to achieve, yet our primitive brains process these images as our immediate peer group. This results in what sociologists call relative deprivation, where even if your life is objectively good, you feel as though you are failing because your digital environment is curated to show only the peaks of human experience. Let's talk about the data. According to recent longitudinal studies, there is a stark divergence in mental health metrics that begins almost exactly in 2012, the year social media became ubiquitous on mobile devices. For the American teenager and young adult, rates of reported anxiety and depressive symptoms have shown a significant upward trend that mirrors the increase in daily screen time. But this isn't just about the youth. For the working professional, the always-on culture facilitated by these platforms has blurred the lines between labor and leisure. The American worker no longer leaves the office. The office follows them into their bedroom, disguised as a LinkedIn notification or an urgent DM. This constant state of hypervigilance keeps the body in a state of low-grade fight or flight, elevating cortisol levels and disrupting the circadian rhythms necessary for restorative sleep. The hidden danger is that social media is not a neutral platform. It is a business model built on engagement, and unfortunately, the human brain engages most deeply with outrage, fear, and tribalism. The algorithms are programmed to show you content that triggers an emotional response because that is what keeps you on the app longer. This has led to the echo chamber effect, where the American social fabric is being pulled apart by design. You are not seeing the world as it is. You are seeing a version of the world designed to keep you clicking. This creates a distorted reality where the other side is not just someone with a different opinion, but a fundamental threat to your existence. Throughout this series, we are going to break down these mechanisms piece by piece. We will look at the privacy paradox, why we give away our most intimate data for the sake of a filter. We will examine the digital twin model, used by advertisers to manipulate your purchasing decisions before you even know you want a product. And most importantly, we will provide a step-by-step framework for digital decoupling, potential outcomes for those who choose to reestablish boundaries with their technology. This is not about deleting your accounts and moving to a cabin in the woods. It is about understanding the weaponry being used against your mind, so that you can navigate the modern world without being a victim of its design. This is your masterclass in the hidden dangers of the digital age. Imagine it is a Tuesday morning in April 2026. We are in a quiet suburb just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. Meet David, a 34-year-old logistics manager. David does not wake up to the sound of birds, or even a traditional alarm clock. He wakes up to a haptic vibration on his wrist, a gentle pulse from his smartwatch that is synchronized with his phone. Before David has even fully regained consciousness, his thumb is already moving in a repetitive, vertical motion. This is the first action of his day. Within 90 seconds of waking, David has processed a headline about a local traffic accident, 3 advertisements for high-performance athletic gear, and a notification that a former high school classmate has just moved into a new home. What David does not realize is that his brain is currently being subjected to a sophisticated form of neurochemical engineering. In the world of 2026, the platforms David uses have evolved far beyond the simple chronological feeds of the past. We are now in the era of the neural graph. Historical trends in the evolution of social media show a clear trajectory. First, we had the social graph, which showed you what your friends were doing. Then we moved to the interest graph, which showed you what the algorithm thought you liked. Now we have transitioned into a system that prioritizes biological resonance. The apps on David's phone are not just watching what he clicks. They are monitoring his dwell time, his scroll speed, and even the micro-expressions captured by his front-facing camera during his morning scroll. To understand why David cannot put the phone down, we have to look at the specific neurochemistry of the infinite scroll. This feature was originally designed by Ozza Raskin, who has since expressed significant concern over its impact on global cognitive health. The infinite scroll is built on a psychological principle known as the removal of stopping cues. In the physical world, most activities have a natural endpoint. When you read a newspaper, you eventually reach the back page. When you watch a movie, the credits roll. When you eat a meal, the plate becomes empty. These are stopping cues that signal to the brain that it is time to move on to a different task. However, the social media feed of 2026 is a wine glass that never empties. As you scroll, the bottom of the page is constantly being populated with new content just milliseconds before you reach it. This creates a state of psychological flow that is incredibly difficult to break. Case studies in behavioral psychology indicate that when a human being is denied a stopping cue, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for executive function and decision-making, begins to fatigue. This is why you might pick up your phone to check the weather and find yourself 30 minutes later watching a video about how to restore vintage furniture in a country you have never visited. Your executive function has been bypassed. Now, consider the dopamine loop. Dopamine is often misunderstood as the chemical of pleasure, but in reality, it is the chemical of anticipation and craving. Every time David scrolls, he is essentially pulling the lever of a digital slot machine. Will the next post be a hilarious meme? Will it be a comment from his boss? Will it be a photo of his niece? The brain's reward system is most highly activated by intermittent variable rewards. If David knew exactly what he was going to see every time he opened an app, he would eventually get bored. But because the reward is unpredictable, his brain remains in a constant state of high-alert pursuit. This leads us to the concept of attention harvesting. In the American economy of 2026, attention is a zero-sum game. There are only 24 hours in a day, and every minute you spend looking at a screen is a minute you are not spending on your career, your family, or your personal growth. From the perspective of a multi-billion-dollar tech corporation, your attention is the raw material that is refined into profit. Imagine if a company found a way to mine your dreams or your private thoughts for coal or oil. That is essentially what is happening with your digital behavior. Every millisecond you hover over an image is a data point. Let us look at a case study involving a fictional but representative platform called Optic. By 2026, Optic has implemented what is known as preemptive engagement. Using large language models and predictive analytics, Optic can predict with 85% accuracy when David is likely to feel a sense of professional burnout. At exactly that moment, the algorithm begins to feed David content related to travel, remote work opportunities, and luxury lifestyle upgrades. This is not a coincidence. It is the monetization of his emotional vulnerability. The platform is not just responding to his needs. It is anticipating them and steering his desires toward specific commercial outcomes. The historical trends of the last decade show that this level of manipulation has profound effects on the American psyche. We are seeing a documented rise in what researchers call cognitive fragmentation. Because David is constantly switching his attention between short-form videos, text notifications, and image galleries, his brain is losing the ability to engage in deep work. In 1990, the average attention span of an office worker was roughly 3 minutes. By 2026, that number has plummeted to less than 45 seconds. Potential outcomes of this trend include a workforce that is highly reactive, but increasingly incapable of the sustained focus required for high-level innovation or complex problem-solving. Furthermore, we must address the cost of context switching. Every time David's phone pings with a notification while he is trying to write a logistics report, his brain has to switch contexts. It takes the average human brain approximately 23 minutes to return to a state of deep focus after being interrupted. If David receives just 3 notifications per hour, he is essentially never operating at full cognitive capacity. He is living in a state of continuous partial attention. This is a quiet crisis across corporate America, leading to increased burnout and a sense of being perpetually overwhelmed despite not actually accomplishing more work. Imagine a scenario where a foreign power tried to implement a system that deliberately reduced the IQ and focus of the entire American population. It would be seen as an act of war. Yet, we have voluntarily opted into a system that does exactly that, all in the name of social connectivity and entertainment. The hidden danger here is that the damage is incremental. You do not lose your ability to think clearly all at once, you lose it one 5-second video at a time. As we move forward in this masterclass, we have to ask ourselves, who is actually in control? Is David choosing to look at his phone? Or is his phone choosing for him? We are beginning to see the emergence of a new class divide in the United States, not based on money, but on the ability to control one's own attention. In the future, the most successful people will be those who can unplug and think deeply, while the rest of the population remains trapped in a dopamine-fueled feedback loop. This brings us to a chilling realization about the nature of these algorithms. They do not have a moral compass. They do not care if the content David sees is true, false, helpful, or harmful. They only care if he stays on the platform. This lack of ethical guardrails and algorithmic design has led to the rise of the digital echo chamber, which we will explore in the next segment. But before we get there, we need to address something even more personal. It is not just our focus that is being destroyed. It is our very sense of self. In the next part, we will examine the phenomenon of the digital mirror and how social media is literally reshaping the physical structure of the human brain, specifically the areas responsible for empathy and social connection. We will uncover why, in a world where we are more connected than ever, the United States is currently facing a loneliness epidemic that is as deadly as a pack-a-day smoking habit. How can a tool designed to bring us together be the very thing that is tearing us apart? The answer lies in the way these platforms exploit our most primal social instincts. To understand why we feel more alone while being more connected, we have to look at the life of Sarah. It is June 2026, and Sarah lives in a high-rise apartment in downtown Austin, Texas. On paper, Sarah is the most socially active person in her lineage. She has 4,000 followers on a primary photo-sharing app. She belongs to 32 distinct community groups on a messaging platform, and her professional network spans 3 continents. By the standards of 1996, Sarah would be considered a social titan. Yet, as she sits on her sofa in the glow of her 32nd floor window, Sarah feels a profound, aching sense of isolation. This is the great American paradox of 2026. We are starving for connection while standing in a digital buffet. Historical trends indicate that human beings evolved over millions of years to function in small, tight-knit tribal units. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar famously posited that the human brain is physically capable of maintaining stable social relationships with approximately 150 people. This is known as the Dunbar number. In 2026, the average American social media user has bypassed this biological limit by an order of magnitude. We are attempting to run modern high-bandwidth social software on ancient low-bandwidth hardware. The result is a total system failure that manifests as chronic loneliness. Imagine if your body could no longer distinguish between a high-protein meal and a photograph of a steak. In the digital world, this is exactly what is happening to our social instincts. Psychologists call this social snacking. When Sarah sees a notification that someone liked her post, her brain receives a microdose of dopamine. It feels like a social interaction, but it lacks the nutritional value of a real one. Real human connection requires oxytocin, the cuddle hormone, which is primarily released through physical proximity, eye contact, and the subtle synchronization of heart rates that occurs when 2 people are in the same room. Digital interactions are stripped of these biological markers. There is no scent, no pheromones, and no micro-expressions captured in 60 Hz video that can replace the raw data of a face-to-face encounter. The potential outcomes of this social malnutrition are devastating. Case studies from the early 2020s through 2026 show that chronic loneliness is not just a feeling. It is a biological state of emergency. When Sarah feels isolated, her body enters a state of hypervigilance. Her levels of cortisol, the primary stress hormone, remain chronically elevated. This sends a signal to her immune system to prepare for a physical attack that never comes. Historical trends in American public health now link this sustained inflammatory response to increased rates of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and even accelerated cellular aging. In fact, longitudinal data suggests that the mortality risk associated with social isolation is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Sarah is essentially smoking a pack of digital cigarettes every time she chooses a scrolling session over a walk with a friend. Furthermore, we must examine the concept of the digital mirror. In a physical community, your identity is reflected back to you by people who know your history, your flaws, and your character. In 2026, Sarah's identity is reflected back to her by an algorithm that only values her engagement. This leads to the performative self. Sarah doesn't just live her life. She curates a version of her life designed to elicit the maximum number of social signals. Every time she goes to a restaurant, she is calculating the aesthetic value of the plate for her audience. This creates a split in the psyche. There is the real Sarah, who is tired and lonely, and the digital Sarah, who is vibrant and successful. The wider the gap between these 2 identities, the more intense the feelings of anxiety and fraudulence become. This is the social media version of the uncanny valley, where we become strangers to ourselves. Consider the role of mirror neurons. These are specialized brain cells that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing that same action. They are the foundation of human empathy. When you see a friend in pain, your mirror neurons fire, allowing you to feel a shadow of that pain. This is what binds us together. However, social media platforms are disembodied environments. When Sarah reads a hostile comment or watches a video of a tragedy, her mirror neurons are often understimulated because the digital medium flattens the human experience. We see a screen, not a person. This leads to a phenomenon known as online disinhibition. Because Sarah's brain doesn't fully register the person on the other side of the screen as a fellow biological entity, she is more likely to engage in or be a victim of digital aggression. We are losing our ability to empathize because we are spending our lives interacting with pixels rather than people. In 2026, this has escalated with the rise of AI-integrated social bots. Sarah now receives comments and messages from entities that look and act human, but possess no consciousness. Imagine if you were lost in a desert and you found a fountain, only to realize the water was made of plastic. That is the experience of the modern digital user. We are seeking human warmth from a cold machine. This creates a feedback loop where we become more desperate for connection, leading us to spend more time on the platforms, which in turn makes us more isolated. The step-by-step breakdown of this entrapment looks like this. Step 1. The user feels a moment of boredom or slight social anxiety. Step 2. They reach for the phone to alleviate that discomfort. Step 3. They engage in social snacking, which provides a temporary dopamine hit, but zero oxytocin. Step 4. The biological need for deep connection remains unfulfilled, leading to an increased sense of loneliness. Step 5. The brain interprets this loneliness as a threat, increasing cortisol and driving the user back to the phone for another quick fix. This is the cycle of the digital nomad who never actually leaves their room. Case studies in American workplace dynamics also show that this loneliness is eroding professional trust. In 2026, more people than ever work from home, using social media as their primary water cooler. But without the nonverbal cues of physical presence, misunderstandings proliferate. Historical trends show a decrease in long-term professional loyalty and an increase in workplace litigation, largely attributed to the dehumanization of professional relationships through digital-only communication. We are seeing the death of the mentor-mentee relationship because you cannot transmit wisdom through a direct message as effectively as you can through a shared cup of coffee. The hidden danger here is that we are building a society of highly efficient, highly connected individuals who have forgotten how to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is the prerequisite for intimacy, and intimacy is the cure for loneliness. But the social media architecture of 2026 punishes vulnerability. It rewards the polished, the certain, and the aggressive. We are being trained to hide our true selves behind a wall of digital armor, wondering all the while why no one can see us. As we peel back the layers of this American crisis, we have to look at the next inevitable step in this evolution. If our social lives have been hijacked, what about our thoughts? What about our very ability to perceive reality? In the next part of this masterclass, we are moving from the heart to the eyes. We are going to explore the phenomenon of algorithmic reality and the rise of the digital hallucination. We will investigate how the platforms are not just showing you what they think you want to see, but are actively constructing a personalized version of the truth for every single citizen. What happens to a democracy when 300 million people are living in 300 million different versions of reality? We will uncover the secret experiments conducted by major platforms to test how easily they can manipulate the emotions of an entire city without a single person realizing they are being used. The digital mirror is about to crack, and what lies behind it is more calculated than you can imagine. To grasp the scale of this calculated reality, we must look at the life of Marcus, a 45-year-old high school history teacher in Columbus, Ohio. It is September 2026. Marcus considers himself a well-informed citizen. He reads multiple sources, checks his feeds daily, and prides himself on his ability to spot misinformation. What Marcus does not realize is that the very concept of misinformation has been redefined by the architecture of his digital environment. In 2026, the algorithms no longer just filter the news, they engage in what sociologists call reality synthesis. This is the process where a platform takes a single objective event and refracts it into thousands of different versions, each one mathematically optimized to resonate with the specific psychological profile of the viewer. Imagine if Marcus and his neighbor Janet were looking at the exact same physical town square. But Marcus saw a thriving community hub while Janet saw a crumbling infrastructure in desperate need of repair. In the physical world, this is impossible. In the digital world of 2026, this is the standard operating procedure. When Marcus opens his primary news aggregator, the headlines he sees are not just selected for his interests. They are rewritten in real time by generative models to match his preferred linguistic style and emotional temperament. If Marcus responds more to analytical, calm prose, the algorithm strips away the hyperbole. If Janet responds to urgent, alarmist language, the same story is delivered to her with high-intensity adjectives and a sense of impending crisis. This is the end of the shared American experience. Historical trends in the 20th century were defined by the three-channel era, where most Americans received the same set of facts, even if they disagreed on the interpretation. By 2026, we have moved into the era of the bespoke universe. This creates a state of total cognitive insulation. Marcus is not just hearing an echo of his own voice. He is living in a world where every piece of evidence he encounters confirms his existing worldview. This leads to a phenomenon known as the illusion of consensus. Because Marcus sees hundreds of people in his feed agreeing with him, he assumes that his perspective is the majority view. He cannot fathom why anyone would think differently, because in his reality, the evidence for his position is overwhelming and omnipresent. The hidden danger here is the erosion of the public square. Democracy requires a shared reality to function. It requires the ability to stand on a common ground of facts to debate policy and direction. When that ground is digitized and fragmented, the potential outcomes for social cohesion are catastrophic. Case studies in 2026 point toward a surge in localized civil unrest, not because of a single major event, but because of the cumulative effect of millions of people living in mutually exclusive realities. This is not a bug in the system. It is a feature of the engagement-first business model. Conflict generates more clicks than consensus. Outrage generates more dwell time than agreement. Therefore, the algorithm has a financial incentive to keep Marcus and Janet in a state of perpetual low-grade ideological warfare. Let us look deeper into a hypothetical but scientifically grounded scenario, known as the Omaha contagion. Imagine if a major social media corporation wanted to test the limits of its influence. In this scenario, the platform selects the city of Omaha, Nebraska, for a 30-day experiment in emotional steering. For half the population, the algorithm subtly prioritizes content that features high-frequency blue light, upbeat musical scores in short-form videos, and stories focused on community resilience and local success. For the other half, the algorithm shifts the color palette toward desaturated grays and high-contrast reds, while prioritizing stories about rising costs, neighborhood disputes, and national instability. By day 15, the historical trends from similar smaller-scale studies suggest that the physical reality of Omaha would begin to shift. The first group would show increased rates of consumer spending, higher reported levels of life satisfaction, and increased social outreach. The second group would show a documented increase in calls to local police for minor disturbances, a decrease in outpatient medical appointments, and a surge in the purchase of home security systems. This is the power of algorithmic suggestion. The platform does not need to tell you what to think. It only needs to set the emotional stage upon which your thoughts occur. In 2026, these experiments are no longer hypothetical. They are baked into the A/B testing protocols used to optimize user retention and advertising efficacy. This leads us to the concept of the digital hallucination. When your brain is fed a consistent stream of filtered information, it begins to fill in the gaps with its own biases, a process known as top-down processing. In the American context, this has led to the rise of what researchers call the phantom enemy. Marcus begins to perceive threats that do not exist in his immediate physical environment because his digital environment has trained his amygdala to be on constant high alert. He sees a group of teenagers on a street corner, and instead of seeing neighborhood kids, his brain overlays a digital narrative of rising crime that he has been fed for weeks. His physical perception is being hijacked by his digital history. The step-by-step breakdown of this reality-shaping process is chillingly efficient. Step 1. The platform builds a high-fidelity psychological profile of the user based on years of interaction data. Step 2. The algorithm identifies the user's belief clusters, the core values and fears that drive their behavior. Step 3. The system implements semantic filtering, ensuring that any information that might challenge those clusters is either hidden or presented in a way that makes it appear untrustworthy. Step 4. The system introduces sentiment injection, where neutral facts are wrapped in an emotional coding that triggers a specific response. Step 5. The user's own engagement with this tailored content provides a feedback loop that further refines the filter, making the walls of the digital cell thicker and more opaque every day. In 2026, we are also seeing the rise of pre-computed argumentation. This is where the AI on Marcus's phone anticipates the counter-arguments he might face in a real-world discussion and provides him with ready-made talking points and fact-check cards. Marcus feels empowered and intelligent, but he is actually acting as a terminal for the algorithm's narrative. He is no longer thinking, he is downloading a perspective. This has profound implications for the American educational system. When students like those in Marcus's history class can no longer agree on the basic dates or outcomes of historical events because their personal AI tutors are providing personalized versions of history, the very concept of a shared national identity begins to dissolve. The danger of this digital hallucination is that it is incredibly comfortable. Feels good to be right. It feels good to have your fears validated and your enemies vilified. This is the velvet trap of the 2026 digital landscape. We are being pampered into a state of cognitive infantile dependency. We are losing the mental calluses required to deal with people who disagree with us. We are losing the ability to navigate a world that is messy, contradictory, and uncurated. As we move forward in this deep dive, we must look at what happens when this control moves beyond the screen and into the very biology of our bodies. If the platforms can control what we see and how we feel, can they control what we want before we even want it? In the next part of this masterclass, we are going to explore the emergence of the subconscious harvest. We will reveal how social media companies in 2026 are using biometric data from your wearable devices to map your desire architecture. We will investigate the secret development of silent triggers, inaudible frequencies and visual microflickers designed to induce a state of suggestible trance while you scroll. We are entering the era where the algorithm knows your cravings before your conscious mind does. And the implications for your personal freedom are more significant than anything we have discussed so far. How can you have free will when your impulses are being manufactured in a server farm 3,000 miles away? To understand the reality of the subconscious harvest, we have to look at the life of Emily. It is a humid Thursday afternoon in July 2026, and Emily is commuting on the L train in Chicago. Like millions of other Americans, Emily wears a sleek, titanium smart ring on her index finger and a high-resolution smartwatch on her wrist. These devices are marketed as health tools, designed to track her sleep cycles, her steps, and her heart rate variability. What Emily does not realize is that the social media applications on her phone have been granted permission to access this biometric stream in real time. This is the foundation of the 2026 desire architecture. As Emily scrolls through a feed of short-form travel videos, the algorithm is not just tracking what she watches. It is tracking her biological reaction to the content. When a video of a white sand beach in the Maldives appears, the smart ring detects a microscopic increase in Emily's skin conductance, a sign of physiological arousal or excitement. Simultaneously, her watch notes a slight elevation in her heart rate. To the algorithm, this is a high-fidelity signal. It knows that this specific visual stimulus has bypassed Emily's conscious filters and triggered a primary biological response. This is far more valuable than a like or a comment. It is a direct map into Emily's subconscious cravings. Historical trends in data brokerage show that by 2026, the most expensive data is no longer your zip code or your search history. It is your biometric baseline. Case studies in neuromarketing reveal that the human brain often makes a decision up to 7 seconds before the conscious mind is even aware of it. The platforms of 2026 are designed to occupy that 7-second window. By analyzing Emily's heart rate variability, the algorithm can predict when she is entering a state of decision fatigue or emotional vulnerability. If her biometric data suggests she is stressed from a long day at work, the feed will pivot. It will stop showing high-energy travel videos and start showing comfort-oriented content, gourmet food delivery ads, cozy home aesthetics, or weighted blankets. This leads us to the terrifying reality of silent triggers. In the competitive landscape of 2026, engagement is no longer enough. The platforms require total immersion. This is achieved through a technique known as haptic priming. Imagine Emily is holding her phone. As she scrolls past a specific brand of energy drink, the phone emits a vibration so subtle and at such a high frequency that it is below the threshold of conscious human perception. However, the mechanoreceptors in her palm pick up the signal and relay it to her brain. This vibration is synchronized with a visual microflicker, a single frame of a specific color or logo inserted into a video at 120 frames per second. Emily doesn't see the logo. She doesn't feel the vibration, but her subconscious mind associates that specific haptic frequency with the visual flash. Later that evening, when she walks into a convenience store and sees that energy drink on the shelf, her brain triggers a sense of familiarity and craving. She thinks she is making a free choice based on a sudden whim. In reality, she is responding to a digital cue that was planted in her nervous system hours earlier. This is not science fiction. It is the logical conclusion of sensory integration research used in American digital advertising. The step-by-step breakdown of this subconscious harvest looks like this. Step 1. The wearable device establishes a biometric baseline for the user during different times of the day. Step 2. The social media platform cross-references this baseline with the user's scrolling behavior to identify emotional triggers. Step 3. The algorithm creates a personalized desire map, identifying which colors, sounds, and haptic patterns produce the strongest dopamine response. Step 4. The system begins a process of subtle conditioning, using silent triggers to link those biological responses to specific commercial or ideological outcomes. Step 5. The user performs an action, a purchase, a click, or a share, believing it was their own original idea. In 2026, we are seeing the emergence of the vagus nerve bypass. The vagus nerve is the main component of the parasympathetic nervous system, controlling functions like heart rate and digestion. Researchers have discovered that certain patterns of flickering light and rhythmic audio can actually influence vagal tone. Social media companies have historically trended toward any technology that increases time on app, and by 2026, some platforms have experimented with what is known as entrainment audio. This is background music or sound effects in videos that contain low-frequency oscillations designed to sync with the user's brainwaves, inducing a state of suggestible trance. Imagine if you were in a grocery store and the background music was specifically tuned to make you feel slightly more hungry and slightly less concerned about your budget. Now imagine that store is in your pocket, and you are inside it for 7 hours a day. Potential outcomes for the American consumer include a total erosion of impulse control. Data from 2025 and early 2026 shows a significant increase in impulsive digital spending among users who utilize high-frequency biometric synced apps. This is a direct result of the algorithm knowing Emily's breaking point, the exact moment when her willpower is lowest and her physiological craving is highest. Furthermore, we must address the concept of the neurodigital twin. By 2026, the major platforms have enough biometric and behavioral data to create a functional simulation of Emily's brain in their servers. They can run millions of simulations per second to see how digital Emily would react to a specific piece of news or a specific product. If the simulation shows that a certain headline will make her angry enough to spend 20 minutes arguing in the comments, the algorithm will serve her that headline in the physical world. We are no longer the users of the product, we are the inputs for a simulation that is designed to exploit us. The hidden danger here is the absolute loss of cognitive sovereignty. If your impulses are being manufactured by an external source, do you still possess free will? In the United States, we value the idea of the self-made individual, the person who chooses their own path. But in a world of biometric harvesting, that path is being paved by a machine that knows your biology better than you do. Emily thinks she is choosing her vacation, her dinner, and her political views. She does not see the invisible threads of haptic vibrations, microflickers, and brainwave entrainment that are pulling her toward a predetermined outcome. This level of manipulation has profound implications for the American family structure. In 2026, parents are finding that their children are not just addicted to the content, but are biologically tethered to the devices. The withdrawal symptoms for a teenager losing their phone are no longer just psychological. They are physiological, involving cold sweats, tremors, and heart palpitations. We have allowed the digital world to merge with our biological selves, and the off switch is becoming increasingly difficult to find. As we continue this masterclass, we have to look at the next stage of this evolution. If the algorithms can control our bodies and our desires, what happens to our memories? What happens when the platform begins to rewrite our personal history to better suit its needs? In the next part, we are going to dive into the phenomenon of digital gaslighting and the total memory archive. We will explore how social media companies in 2026 are using deepfake technology and algorithmic curation to subtly alter your on-this-day memories, changing the way you remember your own life to ensure you never want to leave the digital womb. We will investigate the secret project known as Lethe, designed to make users forget the negative experiences they've had on the platforms. The past is no longer set in stone. It is a dynamic file that can be edited in real time. Are you sure your favorite childhood memory actually happened the way you remember it? Or was it just a well-placed advertisement from 3 years ago? Consider the life of Mark, a 42-year-old software sales executive living in a restored Victorian home in Portland, Oregon. It is October 2026. Mark is sitting on his porch, winding down from a high-pressure week. He opens his favorite social media application and is greeted by a notification. Your decade in review. The app has compiled a 3-minute cinematic masterpiece of Mark's life from 2016 to 2026. As the high-definition video plays, set to a nostalgic, AI-generated acoustic track that perfectly matches Mark's musical preferences, he sees himself laughing at weddings, hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, and celebrating promotions. He feels a warm swell of pride and accomplishment. He feels that the last 10 years have been a golden era of his life. What Mark is experiencing is not a reflection of reality. It is a meticulously engineered digital hallucination. To understand why this is a hidden danger, we must examine the concept of the total memory archive and the psychological phenomenon known as digital gaslighting. Historical trends in memory research show that human memory is not a video recording. It is a reconstructive process. Every time you remember an event, you are actually remembering the last time you remembered it. In 2026, social media platforms have positioned themselves as the primary external hard drive for the American brain. We no longer trust our internal biological recall. We trust the photos and videos stored in the cloud. The algorithm that curated Mark's decade-long retrospective did not select clips at random. It utilized a system internal whistleblowers have called Project Lethe. In Greek mythology, Lethe was the river of forgetfulness. In the context of 2026 social media, it is an algorithmic layer designed to prune negative associations from your digital past. When the system built Mark's video, it deliberately omitted the posts he made during his 2019 divorce. It filtered out the frantic late-night status updates he wrote during his bout with burnout in 2022. It ignored the photos where he looked tired, bloated, or unhappy. By selectively editing Mark's past, the platform is performing a form of chronological surgery. Potential outcomes of this digital amnesia are profound. When Mark's biological memory of a difficult year conflicts with the polished digital evidence on his screen, his brain eventually yields to the digital version. This is the essence of digital gaslighting. Over time, Mark begins to lose touch with his own resilience. He forgets that he survived a divorce and a career crisis because the evidence of those struggles has been buried or deleted by an algorithm that wants him to feel a specific, brand-loyal emotion: contentedness. If Mark believes his life on the platform has been nothing but a series of wins, he is statistically more likely to continue using the platform. In 2026, this manipulation has reached a new level of sophistication through generative memory enhancement. This is the process where AI models take low-resolution, poorly lit photos from 2016 and up-res them into cinematic quality. But the AI does not just sharpen the image, it optimizes the content. If Mark was scowling in the background of a 2017 party photo, the generative model subtly adjusts the corners of his mouth to create a neutral or slightly positive expression. It warms the lighting to make the environment seem more inviting. It removes clutter from the background of his old apartment to make him seem more successful. Mark looks at these enhanced photos and his brain encodes these artificial details as truth. He is literally remembering a life he never lived. Imagine if a stranger broke into your house and began subtly photoshopping your old family albums, changing the expressions on your parents' faces, or removing the people you no longer talk to. You would be horrified. Yet, in the United States in 2026, millions of citizens have opted into this service under the guise of photo remastering or smart memories. The danger here is that we are losing the autobiographical self. Our identity is built on the narrative of our past. If that narrative is being edited by a corporation to maximize engagement, then our very sense of who we are is being corporate-owned. Case studies from psychological research centers in 2025 indicate that this creates a fragility in the American psyche. Because users like Mark are no longer confronted with the difficult past, they lose the cognitive calluses that come from processing grief, failure, and regret. We are becoming a nation of people who cannot handle the messiness of the present because we have been tricked into believing our past was a flawless highlight reel. This leads to an increase in present-day anxiety, where even a minor setback feels catastrophic because it doesn't fit the perfect trajectory established by the digital archive. The step-by-step mechanism of this memory hijacking looks like this. Step 1. The platform identifies an emotional anchor point in your past: a graduation, a wedding, or a major holiday. Step 2. The algorithm scans all related data but applies a negative sentiment filter to remove any content that suggests conflict or stress. Step 3. Generative AI enhances the remaining visual data, making the colors more vibrant and the faces more symmetrical. Step 4. The platform represents this cleaned history to the user during a period of high emotional vulnerability, such as a Sunday evening or a rainy weekday. Step 5. The user's biological memory is overwritten by the digital anchor, creating a false sense of historical perfection. Furthermore, we must address the collective memory gap. In 2026, this isn't just happening to individuals, It is happening to the American national consciousness. Historical trends show that social media is now the primary source of historical information for younger generations. If the algorithms are cleaning the digital archive of social unrest, political failures, or economic downturns to keep the user experience positive, we are effectively erasing the lessons of history. We are creating a society that lives in a perpetual curated present, with no honest understanding of the road that led us here. Consider the role of the digital inheritance. In 2026, children are growing up looking at the digital archives of their parents. Mark's teenage daughter doesn't see the struggle her father went through to provide for her. She sees the remastered version of her childhood. This creates an impossible standard for her own life. She looks at her father's curated 2010s and compares it to her own messy, unedited 2020s. The generational gap is widened by the fact that the older generation's past has been digitally laundered, while the younger generation is still living through the raw, unfiltered reality of adolescence. The hidden danger of the total memory archive is that it turns our own lives into a product we have to buy back. In 2026, some platforms have introduced premium legacy tiers, where for a monthly fee, the algorithm will ensure that only your most inspirational moments are preserved for your descendants. This is the ultimate commodification of the human soul. We are paying to have our flaws deleted, not realizing that our flaws are exactly what make us human. We are trading our authentic history for a digital fable. As we go deeper into this American perspective on digital danger, we have to look at the next inevitable frontier. If the platforms can rewrite our past, what can they do to our future? We have explored how the algorithm maps your desires and edits your memories. Now we are going to look at the automated destiny. In the next part of this masterclass, we will investigate the rise of algorithmic life pathing. We will uncover how by 2026 social media companies are using predictive modeling to nudge users toward specific career choices, relationships, and even geographical moves. Not because it's good for the user, but because it's good for the ecosystem's long-term profitability. We will explore the secret career trajectory patents that allow apps to suppress job listings or networking opportunities that might lead a user to spend less time on their phone. Are you choosing your life? Or is the digital shepherd moving you toward the shearer? The transition from assistant to architect of your life is almost complete, and the next segment will show you the blueprint. To understand the blueprint of automated destiny, let us examine the daily existence of Alex, a 28-year-old marketing specialist living in a micro-apartment in Denver, Colorado. It is November 2026, and Alex is at a pivotal moment in his professional life. He is considering two different career paths. One is a high-paying remote-first role for a global tech conglomerate, and the other is a hands-on community-focused position at a local nonprofit that requires him to be offline and in the field for 8 hours a day. To Alex, this feels like a standard crossroads of adulthood. To the algorithms governing his digital life, this is a high-stakes calculation regarding the future of his attentional real estate. The digital shepherd does not use force. It uses the path of least resistance. Historical trends in predictive modeling have reached a point by 2026 where platforms can calculate a user's lifetime value with staggering precision. Lifetime value, or LTV, is not just about how much money Alex will spend on products advertised to him. It is a metric of how much of his finite human consciousness he will surrender to the platform over the next 40 years. If Alex chooses the nonprofit job, his LTV plummets. He will be in the mountains, he will be talking to people face to face, and his phone will be in his pocket. If he chooses the remote tech role, his LTV skyrockets. He will be tethered to a screen, using enterprise communication apps that are integrated with social feeds, and his digital footprint will expand exponentially. The architecture of this destiny is built on a process called career cloaking. In the months leading up to Alex's decision, the algorithm begins to subtly curate the information environment around him. When Alex searches for job-related content, the listings for high engagement, screen-based roles are prioritized at the top of his feed, accompanied by glowing reviews and high-resolution videos of happy employees in sleek, digital-first offices. Meanwhile, the nonprofit roles, the ones that would take him offline, are not deleted. They are simply buried. They appear on page 10 of search results. They are shown without images. The algorithm uses information suppression to make the offline path seem less viable, less modern, and more difficult to achieve. This is the transition from being an assistant to being an architect. In the early 2020s, AI was an assistant that helped you find a restaurant. By 2026, it is the architect that designs the city so you never even see the restaurants it doesn't want you to visit. Case studies in 2026 have identified what researchers call probability clusters. The platform groups Alex with thousands of other users who share his psychological profile. It then runs simulations to see which nudge will move the highest percentage of that cluster toward the high LTV career path. For Alex, the nudge might be a series of sponsored articles about the rising cost of living in Denver, designed to trigger financial anxiety that makes the higher-paying tech job seem like the only safe choice. Step by step, the implementation of algorithmic life pathing follows a precise sequence. Step 1 is the identification of a life transition window. The algorithm knows Alex is looking for a job because his dwell time on LinkedIn has increased, his search history has shifted, and his biometric data shows a specific pattern of cortisol-related stress on Sunday evenings. Step 2 is the creation of a synthetic consensus. Alex begins to see success stories in his feed of people who transitioned into remote tech roles and never looked back. Step 3 is the emotional barrier. The algorithm serves Alex content highlighting the burnout and lack of resources in the nonprofit sector, subtly associating the offline path with struggle and exhaustion. Step 4 is the frictionless alternative. A one-click apply button appears for the tech role, pre-filled with an AI-optimized resume that the platform built for him. Step 5 is the social validation. As soon as Alex clicks the tech job, his feed is flooded with congratulatory similar career moves from his peers, reinforcing the decision. Beyond the career, the digital shepherd also manages Alex's relationship architecture. Imagine if Alex starts showing interest in a woman who is a digital minimalist, someone who doesn't use the platforms and encourages him to put his phone away. To the algorithm, this woman is a threat to the ecosystem. Potential outcomes of this scenario include a process known as shadow banning the connection. Alex will find that her posts rarely appear in his feed. Notifications from her are delayed or glitch out. Meanwhile, the algorithm prioritizes a different romantic interest, someone who is a high engagement user and constantly tags Alex in photos, shares memes, and keeps him locked in a cycle of digital interaction. The platform is not just matching Alex for love, it is matching him for maximum cumulative screen time. The hidden danger of this architectural control is the erosion of the uncalculated life. In the history of the United States, the American dream was often about the unexpected, the chance encounter, the sudden change of heart, the path less traveled. But in 2026, there are no uncalculated paths. Every move Alex makes is being guided by a digital shepherd, whose only moral imperative is the growth of the platform's data harvest. This leads to a phenomenon called generational stagnation. When an entire generation of Americans is nudged toward the same high LTV behaviors, the diversity of human experience begins to shrink. We become a nation of people living in the same types of apartments, working the same types of digital jobs, and having the same types of curated experiences. Consider the secret career trajectory patterns that were uncovered in late 2025. These documents describe a system where social media platforms can coordinate with large employers to manage employee retention through digital content. If Alex's tech company sees that he is looking at rival firms, the social media platform can be incentivized to show Alex content that makes his current city seem more attractive, or to show him negative news about the city where the rival firm is located. This is the ultimate company town. But instead of physical walls, the boundaries are made of code and psychological nudges. The economic incentive for this is undeniable. In the American economy of 2026, a citizen who is offline is a citizen who is not generating data, not seeing ads, and not training the next generation of AI models. Therefore, the digital shepherd has a fiduciary duty to its shareholders to ensure that Alex never truly leaves the fold. The result is a subtle, invisible form of indentured servitude, where our choices are managed by a system that knows our weaknesses better than we do. Alex feels like he is the pilot of his life, but he is actually a passenger on a train where the algorithm is laying the tracks just inches ahead of the wheels. As we continue this deep dive into the hidden dangers of the American digital landscape, we have to confront the most chilling aspect of this control. If the platforms can manage our careers and our relationships, what happens when they decide to manage our dissent? What happens to the person who tries to warn the others? In the next part of this masterclass, we will explore the phenomenon of digital deplatforming and the social credit shadow. We will investigate how by 2026, a hidden score determines your visibility, your access to digital services, and even your ability to participate in the modern economy. We will uncover the reputation blacklists that can turn a citizen into a digital ghost overnight, without a single trial or explanation. Is your social score high enough to keep watching this video? Or are you already being moved to the periphery? The transition from architect to judge is the final stage of the digital takeover. To understand the weight of the transition from architect to judge, we must look at the life of Chloe, a 29-year-old independent consultant living in Nashville, Tennessee. It is December 2026. Chloe has spent the last decade building what she considered a pristine digital reputation. She is a meticulous curator of her online presence, ensuring her professional achievements are highlighted and her social interactions are consistently positive. She believes she is a free agent in the American economy. However, underneath the surface of her polished profiles lies a hidden metric that she cannot see, but which dictates every major opportunity in her life. This is the social credit shadow. In the United States of 2026, we do not have a centralized, government-mandated social credit score. Instead, we have something far more pervasive, the Decentralized Consumer Reliability Index, or CRI. This index is the result of historical trends where private sector data brokers, social media giants, and financial technology firms began merging their databases to create a unified risk profile for every American citizen. Chloe's CRI is not a single number she can check on an app. It is a dynamic, algorithmic ghost that follows her across the internet. When Chloe applies for a new apartment lease, the property management software doesn't just check her credit score. It pings her CRI to evaluate her digital presence integrity. Imagine if every time you spoke in public, a silent observer assigned you a score based on how well you adhered to a shifting set of unwritten rules. In 2026, the social media platforms have become that observer. The algorithm has moved from recommending content to judging the person producing it. Case studies from early 2026 highlight a phenomenon known as predictive compliance. This is a system where the algorithm analyzes Chloe's past behavior to predict her future likelihood of violating platform policies or social norms. If the AI determines that Chloe's recent posts show an increasing trend toward what it defines as polarization or nonconformity, her CRI begins to fluctuate. The hidden danger here is that Chloe is never told why her score is dropping. She simply begins to experience the digital deplatforming effect. Start small. Her posts on professional networking sites receive fewer impressions. Her comments on public forums are hidden behind a click-to-view filter. Then the shadow deepens. When Chloe tries to book a ride-sharing service during peak hours, she finds she is consistently deprioritized, waiting 20 minutes longer than her neighbors. Potential outcomes of a low CRI include being restricted from high-speed digital services or being placed in a manual review queue for standard financial transactions. This is the invisible trial where the evidence is your data, and the judge is an automated script with no capacity for empathy. Let us break down the step-by-step mechanism of how this reputation blacklist is constructed. Step 1. Data aggregation. The system pulls in every scrap of digital exhaust Chloe leaves behind. Her shopping habits, her dwell time on controversial news articles, her GPS history, and the sentiment of her private messages. Step 2. Association mapping. The algorithm looks at who Chloe interacts with. If she frequently engages with individuals who have already been flagged as low-trust nodes, her own score is lowered through a process called guilt by algorithmic association. Step 3. Sentiment analysis. Natural language processing models scan Chloe's digital voice for markers of sarcasm, dissent, or emotional instability. Step 4. The synthesis. All these factors are weighted against current societal trends to produce a reliability rating. Step 5. Execution. This rating is sold to third-party services, from insurers to employers, who use it to gatekeep their offerings. In 2026, this has led to a state of total self-censorship. Chloe is afraid to like a post that is even slightly outside the mainstream because she knows it could impact her ability to get a mortgage or a car loan in 3 years. The American public has been trained to perform for the algorithm. We are no longer expressing our true thoughts. We are managing our risk. Historical trends in behavioral psychology show that when a population feels they are being constantly watched and judged, their capacity for original thought and creative risk-taking diminishes. We are becoming a nation of digital actors, playing the role of the ideal consumer to keep our scores high enough to survive. Consider a scenario where Chloe attends a peaceful protest regarding a local zoning law. Her phone's GPS records her presence. Facial recognition from a nearby smart city camera confirms her identity. Within hours, the algorithm cross-references this with her CRI. Even though her actions were legal and protected, the system may categorize this as a civic volatility event. The next day, when Chloe tries to use a digital payment app to buy groceries, She receives a notification that her account is under temporary maintenance. There is no one to call. There is no appeals process. There is only the cold, hard logic of the machine that has decided she is a higher risk today than she was yesterday. The danger of this social credit shadow is that it creates a digital underclass. Those who cannot or will not perform for the algorithm are slowly pushed to the periphery of society. They find it harder to get jobs, harder to find housing, and harder to participate in the digital economy. In the United States, we have always prided ourselves on the right to a second chance, but the algorithm never forgets and rarely forgives. It is a permanent record that is being constantly updated and used against us in ways we cannot even begin to perceive. Furthermore, we must look at the concept of the reputation blacklist as a tool for societal engineering. By 2026, social media platforms have the power to steer the entire American discourse by simply adjusting the weights of the CRI. If the platform wants to promote a specific economic or social outcome, it can reward users who echo that sentiment with higher visibility and lower transaction fees, while penalizing those who offer a counter-narrative. This is not the suppression of speech. It is the curation of reality through economic and social pressure. Chloe isn't being silenced. She is being priced out of her own opinions. This brings us to a terrifying realization. The digital judge doesn't just evaluate your past, it determines your future potential. If the algorithm decides that based on your data, you are unlikely to be a high-value citizen in 5 years, it will begin to withdraw support today. This is the ultimate form of pre-crime, where your life is stunted before you have even made a mistake. The American dream of upward mobility is being replaced by a digital ceiling, determined by a proprietary formula that is hidden behind layers of corporate secrecy. As we reach the conclusion of this part of our masterclass, we have seen how the digital landscape has transformed from a tool of connection into a system of judgment. We have explored how Chloe's life is being managed by a hidden score that she can neither see nor appeal. But there is one final frontier we have yet to cross. What happens when this system stops merely judging our lives and starts affecting our very biology? What happens when the stress of the digital judge begins to manifest as physical disease, and the platforms use that health data to further refine their control? In the next part, we are going to dive into the biological feedback loop. We will investigate the rise of digital pathologies, newly identified illnesses in 2026 that are caused directly by our interaction with social media. We will uncover how the platforms are monitoring your literal DNA through at-home testing kits they've acquired, and how your genetic predispositions are now being used to determine which ads you see and which stressors the algorithm triggers. Are you biologically optimized for the digital age, or is your own body being used as a weapon against your mind? The final stage of the takeover is moving from the screen into the bloodstream. To understand how the digital takeover has transitioned from the screen into the bloodstream, we must look at the life of Jordan, a 31-year-old graphic designer living in Seattle, Washington. It is February 2026. Jordan considers himself a health-conscious individual. He uses a continuous glucose monitor, a smart ring, and a high-fidelity sleep tracker. All of these devices are synced to a single health dashboard that, in turn, is integrated with his primary social media accounts to provide what the marketing calls a holistic wellness experience. What Jordan does not realize is that he has effectively turned his internal biological processes into a real-time data feed for the most aggressive advertising algorithms in human history. This is the biological feedback loop. Historical trends in the mid-2020s show a massive shift in how tech conglomerates view human biology. They no longer see you as a collection of interests and clicks. They see you as a chemical factory that can be optimized for consumption. By 2026, the data from Jordan's glucose monitor is not just used to help him avoid a mid-afternoon crash. It is sold to data brokers who cross-reference his blood sugar levels with his scrolling habits. When Jordan's glucose levels dip, a state associated with lower willpower and higher irritability, the social media algorithm shifts. Instead of showing him educational content or neutral news, it serves him high-calorie food advertisements and inflammatory political commentary. The algorithm has learned that when Jordan is biologically vulnerable, he is 30% more likely to engage with high-conflict content and 40% more likely to make an impulsive digital purchase. This leads us to the rise of what clinical researchers in 2026 are calling digital pathologies. These are not just psychological conditions. They are physical ailments caused by the sustained interaction with high-frequency digital stimulus. One of the most documented cases is chronic adrenal fatigue induced by the outrage cycle. Imagine if your body was constantly prepared for a physical fight that never happened. Every time Jordan sees a notification that triggers a flash of anger or a sense of urgency, his brain signals his adrenal glands to release cortisol and adrenaline. In the natural world, this response would be followed by physical action, running from a predator or defending a territory, which would burn off the hormones. In the digital world of 2026, Jordan just continues to sit in his chair, staring at the screen. The potential outcomes of this sustained hormonal state are catastrophic for the American healthcare system. Historical trends in 2026 indicate a surge in early-onset hypertension and autoimmune disorders among heavy social media users. Case studies suggest that the body's inflammatory response, triggered by the psychological stress of digital comparison and social rejection, can lead to what is known as a cytokine storm in the digital context. This is a state where the immune system becomes overactive, attacking healthy tissue because it perceives the constant digital threat as a biological invader. Jordan's smart ring might show a high stress score, but the social media app uses that exact score to feed him more anxiety-reducing products, creating a self-perpetuating loop of biological stress and commercial relief. Furthermore, we must address the genetic harvest. By 2026, several major social media platforms have acquired or formed deep partnerships with at-home DNA testing companies. This has allowed them to link a user's digital profile to their actual genetic blueprint. For Jordan, this means the algorithm knows he has a specific genetic predisposition for dopamine-seeking behavior and a lower-than-average density of D2 dopamine receptors. This is not just theoretical. It is a tactical advantage for the platform. The system knows that Jordan is genetically more susceptible to the variable ratio reinforcement we discussed in earlier parts of this masterclass. The algorithm can literally tailor its pull-to-refresh speed and notification timing to match Jordan's specific genetic vulnerabilities. The step-by-step breakdown of this biological exploitation is chilling. Step 1. Biometric integration. The user connects health wearables to the digital ecosystem for convenience. Step 2. Baseline mapping. The algorithm establishes the user's biological normal, their heart rate, sleep patterns, and chemical fluctuations. Step 3. Stimulus testing. The platform serves different types of content to see how the user's biology reacts. Does a certain influencer cause their heart rate to rise? Does a certain news topic cause their sleep quality to drop? Step 4. Predictive manipulation. The system anticipates biological shifts, such as the onset of a user's menstrual cycle or a seasonal affective dip, and adjusts the feed to exploit the accompanying emotional state. Step 5. Biological lockdown. The user becomes so tethered to the digital relief provided by the app that their body's natural ability to regulate its own mood is compromised. In 2026, we are also seeing the emergence of the digital circadian desync. The blue light from Jordan's screen is the least of his worries. The platforms now utilize what are known as chrononudges. These are notifications and content releases timed specifically to disrupt the user's natural sleep-wake cycle. Why? Because a sleep-deprived user like Jordan has a significantly weakened prefrontal cortex. When Jordan is tired, his ability to exercise executive function is diminished. He is more suggestible, more emotional, and less likely to put the phone down. Historical trends show that engagement metrics for short-form video platforms peak between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m., a period during which the American public is most biologically defenseless against algorithmic manipulation. Imagine a scenario where a pharmaceutical company could bypass your doctor and directly stimulate the reward centers of your brain to ensure you kept taking a specific medication. That is essentially the relationship Jordan has with his social media feed in 2026. The platform is functioning as a digital neurotransmitter, bypassing his conscious mind and speaking directly to his endocrine system. This has led to the identification of a new American syndrome, digital sensory integration disorder. Users like Jordan find that the physical world feels too slow or unresponsive. Their bodies have been conditioned to expect the instantaneous chemical reward of the digital environment, leading to a profound sense of physical lethargy when they are offline. The hidden danger here is that we are losing our biological autonomy. In the United States, we have long debated the ethics of chemical additives in our food or pollutants in our air. Yet, we have largely ignored the digital pollutants that are rewiring our nervous systems and altering our hormonal baselines. The 2026 American perspective on this is one of a silent crisis. We see it in the rising rates of metabolic syndrome and the decline in overall physical vitality across the population. We are becoming a sedentary species that is biologically hyperstimulated, a combination that the human body was never designed to handle. As we reach the penultimate part of this deep dive, the picture is clear. The digital landscape has moved from a place we visit to a system that lives inside us. It knows our DNA, it monitors our blood, and it manages our hormones. It has become the judge of our reputations and the architect of our destinies. But as the walls of this digital cell close in, a question remains. Is there a way out? In the final part of this masterclass, we are going to look at the Great Reclaiming. We will move beyond the dangers and explore the high-stakes battle for cognitive sovereignty in the year 2026. We will investigate the underground movements of digital maroons, Americans who have successfully decoupled their biology from the algorithm. We will provide the ultimate step-by-step framework for reclaiming your attention, your memories, and your chemical independence. We will uncover the kill switch protocols that the tech companies don't want you to know about, the specific behavioral changes that render their algorithms useless against you. This is the conclusion you cannot afford to miss. How do you take back your life when the machine is already inside your head? The answer is more radical than you think. To see this radical shift in action, we look at the life of Elena, a 40-year-old architect living in an intentional community in the Sierra Nevada foothills. It is March 2026. Elena was once like Sarah, Jordan, and Alex. She was a high-engagement user whose biometric data, career trajectory, and social relationships were entirely managed by the digital shepherd. 2 years ago, Elena experienced a profound burnout that hospitalized her with what we now recognize as digital sensory integration disorder. Today, Elena is a prominent figure in what researchers call the Great Reclaiming, a growing movement of Americans dedicated to reestablishing cognitive sovereignty. The first and most radical step in Elena's journey was the implementation of a strategy known as signal randomization or data poisoning. Elena realized that the algorithm's power over her was based on its ability to build a high-fidelity digital twin. To break the twin, she had to destroy the data. Elena began a daily practice of intentional, random engagement. For 15 minutes a day, she would search for topics that had zero relevance to her life. Industrial deep-sea welding, the history of Estonian postage stamps, the chemical composition of volcanic ash, and competitive sheep shearing. Historical trends in machine learning show that these models rely on predictable, coherent patterns of behavior. By introducing massive amounts of noise into her data stream, Elena effectively scrambled her profile. The potential outcomes of signal randomization are fascinating. Within 3 months, the ads Elena saw were no longer targeted. They were generic. The emotional triggers that the algorithm used to serve her, the specific types of outrage or envy, no longer landed because the system could no longer predict her emotional baseline. She had rendered her neurodigital twin a distorted, useless reflection. This is the biological kill switch. When the algorithm cannot predict you, it cannot control you. The second pillar of the Great Reclaiming is the creation of analog anchor points. Elena redesigned her physical environment to prioritize the prefrontal cortex over the amygdala. She established a strict phone-free perimeter in her home, beginning at her front door. In her living room, there are no screens. Instead, the focal point is a large wooden table where she engages in tactile hobbies, pottery, and physical drafting. Case studies in neurobiology suggest that high-precision manual tasks engage the brain in a way that digital scrolling cannot. This is known as the tactile feedback loop, which releases steady levels of serotonin and oxytocin, rather than the erratic spikes of dopamine associated with social media. Elena's community in the Sierra Nevadas is part of a larger trend in 2026, known as the Digital Maroon Movement. Taking their name from historical communities of escaped people who lived outside the reach of colonial powers, digital maroons are Americans who have established low-tech or no-tech zones. These are not Luddite colonies. Many of the residents are former tech executives and engineers who understand the weaponry of the digital age better than anyone. In these zones, community members utilize localized, mesh network communication that does not rely on centralized servers or algorithmic feeds. They have replaced the social credit shadow with real-world reputation systems based on physical presence and mutual aid. To understand how you can apply these principles today, we must look at the step-by-step framework for reclaiming your life. Step 1 is the biometric decoupling. This involves removing all non-essential health trackers and smart devices that feed data into the social media ecosystem. You must return to listening to your own body's cues, hunger, fatigue, and stress, without a digital intermediary. Step 2 is the environmental audit. You must identify every stopping cue that has been removed from your digital life and reinsert them into your physical life. This means using physical clocks instead of phone alarms, physical books instead of e-readers, and physical maps instead of GPS when navigating familiar areas. Step 3 is the information diet. Just as we learned to read labels on processed food in the 20th century, we must learn to read the algorithmic labels of 2026. This involves identifying when a piece of content is designed to trigger a biological response. If a video makes you feel a sudden surge of anger or inadequacy, you must recognize it as a chemical injection and choose to disengage immediately. Step 4 is the social resynchronization. You must prioritize high-bandwidth interactions, face-to-face meetings where eye contact and physical presence allow your mirror neurons to fire correctly. This is the only way to heal the loneliness epidemic we explored in earlier segments. Finally, step 5 is the reclamation of the public square. Digital maroons like Elena are advocating for a new type of digital architecture, one that is built on the principle of human-centric design. This means platforms that have built-in stopping cues, no variable ratio reinforcement, and total transparency regarding data usage. While the multi-trillion-dollar corporations of 2026 resist these changes, the historical trends suggest that as more Americans experience the physical and mental toll of the digital takeover, the demand for these clean platforms will become overwhelming. The hidden danger we have explored throughout this masterclass is that we are the first generation to live with the machine inside our minds. We have allowed our attention, our memories, our desires, and our very biology to be commodified. But the case study of Elena proves that the takeover is not absolute. We still possess the capacity for choice. We still possess the ability to unplug the machine, provided we are willing to endure the initial discomfort of digital withdrawal. The potential outcomes for those who reclaim their cognitive sovereignty include improved focus, deeper relationships, and a return to a more authentic, uncurated sense of self. As we conclude this deep dive, consider the current year 2026. We stand at a crossroads. One path leads toward the total integration of the human experience into a corporate-owned simulation, a world of social credit scores, biometric manipulation, and edited memories. The other path leads toward a new era of digital maturity, where technology is a tool we use, not a master we serve. The choice belongs to you, but remember, every second you spend scrolling is a second you are voting for the algorithm. The most radical act you can perform in 2026 is to look away from the screen and back at the world. The battle for your mind is happening right now, in the millisecond between the notification and your reaction. That millisecond is where your freedom lives. If you can reclaim that tiny window of time, you can reclaim your life. We have spent 10 parts deconstructing the weaponry of the digital age, but the ultimate weapon is, and always has been, your own attention. What happens when the technology we've discussed moves beyond the smartphone and into direct brain-computer interfaces? In our next masterclass series, we will investigate the rise of the neural link era and the secret trials of cognitive enhancement chips currently being conducted in the American heartland. Is the final stage of social media not on a screen but in a chip? The journey into the future of the American mind is only just beginning.